Well, after that introduction, it's going to be downhill from here. I'll tell you a little story about Naders Raiders, since Ralph mentioned it. There were three of us writing the Narrative Report on the Federal Trade Commission, and we were told that we had to testify before the FTC, and that's pretty intimidating to testify against the agency you're testifying in front of. And they all sit in these 5 commissioners on this elevated dais there, and you have to testify. And Ralph said, well, Bob, you write the testimony, but John Schultz, you deliver it. And John, of course, was older than we were. He was a Yale Law graduate, very handsome, so I hated him. And but I was supposed to write the testimony he was supposed to deliver. And so I started out with, this agency has failed too, and followed that with, this agency has failed too, and this agency has failed too 27 times. And then Ralph looked at it, and I said, he's not going to let this go. Not only did he let it go, he added this last sentence about geritol and tired blood, which was hilarious. And so John is delivering it, and he's looking at, giving me dirty looks while he's delivering it. And he was also, of course, very friendly with the secretary, the personnel director of the agency, very friendly. And we got all the documents that were flowing through the FTC during this period. And so that's the backdrop for our being coined the Naders Raiders. It's kind of an amusing period of my life. I do remember, though, very much so, that during that period I was a law student. And I was involved in the real world. And then when I became a law professor, I said to myself, we really ought to be doing this to the students today. I mean, they should have the chance I had. Here I did a report in the Federal Trade Commission with 2 other co-authors, and there's this huge headlines. I go to this press area, and there's newspapers all over the country, New Orleans Times-Picayune and Seattle, all over, and headlines, Naders Raiders attack FTC. I said, Jesus, was that me? I hope my mother's not saying that, because she's going to critique my report. She's a linguistics professor. I didn't want that to happen. So I was very amazed. But here comes the FTC Improvements Act. We did the Interstate Commerce Commission report. Here comes the Surface Transportation Deregulation Act. Before I graduated from law school, we were writing statutes, and we were part of the consumer movement. And I said, you know, my students should be able to do that. And one of my goals over the past 35 years has been to get my students to do what Ralph got me to do, what enabled me to do. And it makes a difference, because if you are a student, we had one student who got just recently a bill through on domestic violence, and she got it through before she graduated. We have 40 students on our Trailblazers wall, and they're all over the country. And you know, when you're a teacher or a parent, you take credit for your students or your children for the rest of their lives, unless they screw up, and that's because they didn't listen. But if they succeed at all, it's of course because of you. And so I'm shameless about that, taking credit for my former students. In any event, I wanted to mention that CPIL, as Ralph mentioned, is the Center for Public Interest Law, which is the parent to the Children's Advocacy Institute, and it's run by Julie D'Angelo Fellmeth, extremely competent, also my wife. And I want to get some hugs tonight, so I'll mention that again, extremely competent. And she runs the Center for Public Interest Law, and it focuses on state regulatory agencies, as Ralph briefly mentioned. It monitors these agencies, and you think, well, gee, that's kind of esoteric and not really important. It's very important. These state agencies regulate much more pervasively and in detail, well beyond any federal agency, well beyond. They regulate the doctors, they regulate the lawyers, they regulate the accountants, they regulate the dentists, the veterinarians, the contractors, you name it. It's a state regulatory agency doing it. And when I took 9th grade civics, I took very seriously this notion that government should be separate from private interests. I didn't like, and still don't like, socialism where the state owns and operates the means of production. I'm sorry, Bernie, don't like that. But there's a worse system, industrial socialism, where the means of production own and operate the state. That's the most horrible system possible. To me, the ideal system is you have 2 independent entities, the state and commercial enterprise, and they're independent from each other. One does not capture the other. One is not overbalanced vis-a-vis the other. There's a check and balance there. More important than the 3 branch checks and balances, in my view. And we've seen that being corrupted with campaign contribution influence. We seem to be corrupted with lobbying influence. 25,000 lobbyists in this city, 1,500 in California, almost all representing horizontal associations. And as a former antitrust prosecutor, I don't like horizontal associations. What is a horizontal association? American Medical Association, horizontal association. Any grouping that gets together who are normally competitors but who are now cooperating, that's a danger. The hair in the back of my neck stands up, coming from prosecuting them. They do bad things. And they are allowed, because of the Norr-Pennington Doctrine, to collude to influence government. And they do that by recruiting government to protect them in terms of their antitrust violations, to give them immunity. And that worries me. What worries me especially is the state regulatory system is particularly worrisome, because the state regulatory system is not just influence, it's not just the trade associations dominating. They actually put their decision makers as the public decision makers on these boards and commissions. They directly control them all over the country. It's happened for the last 30 years, just evolved. The lawyers control the bars, the doctors control the medical board. These are entities that are supposed to represent us, the people, not the profession or trade. And that form of corruption is the most extreme form of corruption, and it's endemic. Now, you may not know this, but 15 months ago, the U.S. Supreme Court, believe it or not, this U.S. Supreme Court held a North Carolina Dental Board versus FTC that any state body controlled by active participants in the trade or profession has no sovereign status. It's not the state. And that's very important. It's a 6-3 decision, the most important decision, I think, during my lifetime in terms of antitrust law, because all of these boards and commissions control supply. They license, and there is a need, obviously, to control supply and to license, but they do so in a self-interested fashion, in place after place after place. They're in the castle, the moat goes, the drawbridge goes up, and often not related to actually assuring competence, which is the raison d'etre for it. And so we have this problem of what amounts to price fixing. You see, if you control supply, that's a form of per se price fixing. It's per se automatically unlawful, period, end of discussion. Your only defense is if it's the state doing it. Well, guess what? They're not the state. If they don't have active supervision from some outside force, they're committing felony offenses and treble damage liability will follow. And this has been going on for a year. So CPIL, Center for Public Interest Law, joined with Consumers Union and the Citizens Advocacy Center to write the Attorneys General of all 50 states with a PRA request, a Public Records Act request of all of them. What are you doing to enforce this statute, to change the membership, the makeup of your regulatory agencies so that they represent the body politic and not the industry being regulated? And we'll see what happens. But we're getting lawsuits together, and we're going to be challenging these practices all over the country to reform the basic structure. Yes, your expertise is valuable. Yes, we want to hear from you. You have lobbyists all over the place. You go to all the regulatory meetings. We know you should be there. That's fine. But you should not be the decision makers. And that's going to happen. That's going to change. Now turning to children, and the reason I'm up here, well, there's an old saying the Hopis have that is our lodestar. I did not inherit this earth from my parents. I am borrowing it from my grandchildren. And that's a lodestar for all of us, to look at how we're going to be looked at in 240 years from now. We look back 240 years ago and see our founding fathers. They gave up everything for us. They had comfortable lives, and they risked it all for us. How are we going to be looked at in 240 years in terms of using non-renewable resources up, for example? I don't care if you believe in global warming or not. We're using up non-renewable resources. And as Paul Bland was saying, if you're using up non-renewable resources, that's a problem. That's a problem. So if you're using up non-renewable resources, put a fee on it. Put a fee on it. Have it increase year after year after year so that people can stop exploiting and discovering. It won't be that much of harm to them because they just stop new ventures. They don't have to give up what they've already discovered. You just let them know it's going to double, and then it's going to triple, and it's going to quadruple. That's how you internalize an external cost, as Paul was explaining, I think, earlier today, and he's right. In any event, children have a problem. They don't get any media attention unless you have a microdrama, a Chelsea's Law and Amber Alert. They don't get attention. They don't get attention because, to the extent most of their problems are gradual, and the media does not pay any attention to gradual, no matter how momentous things are. So you have serious problems with regard to where they're going now with children. You have the cost of tuition going up vis-a-vis what we in the boomer generation have had to pay, 4 or 5 times the cost of inflation. You have houses going up in cost enormously. You have over 40% of children not even intended. You have serious cultural problems here. They don't vote. They don't contribute to campaigns. In terms of lobbying, a friend of mine, Charles Bruner, did a study of lobbying in D.C. AARP, the retired person, spends between $20 to $25 million a year every year in lobbying, all child advocates combined, including our office in D.C., and Amy Hartfeld is here from our office, somewhere here. She's our director of lobbying here in D.C., plus the Children's Defense Fund, plus all of them combined, less than $1 million. That's less than $1 million compared to what Wall Street spends, not to mention AARP, what Wall Street and the pharmaceutical companies spend. It's completely out of balance. It's completely out of whack. So we have to do something about campaigns and about lobbying and about that whole area. We have an academic program. I'll go through this pretty quickly because I don't have a lot of time. Okay, there's the, we have an academic program. So it's just one that's founded. Purposes. Why children, they're diffuse future interests. They really respond to that hope he's saying. Obstacles. I just mentioned some of the obstacles you can imagine. Some undeniable, albeit ignored results. I mentioned that already. There's the academic program we have. That's the text. I'm doing my 4th edition of it right now. It's a law text. It could cure your insomnia. If any of you are interested in have a problem, I can solve it right there. It's an academic program. We have clinics. We represent kids in the dependency court. Our students do policy work. They get involved in legislation. They get involved in litigation. They get involved in rulemaking. And we're in all those fora. If you're not in one, you're going to lose, and the others you're not in. We got a bill enacted to make sure that you're going to, in fact, report child abuse deaths. The state ignored it. We went to court and won there. We were in all 3 fora, and if we hadn't been in all 3, we would not have won. It's very important that you be in all of the places where change can occur, and that means before the public, before the regulatory agencies, before the legislature, and in the courts. Our advocacy component, obviously, we do a lot of advocacy. We go into CAPTA flaws, Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act. The feds have floors. They ignore the floors. They let the states violate the floors all over the country. It's quite amazing. We did a report on that, in fact. You have legislative highlights. We have 40 statutes we've enacted in the safety area, helmet safety, obviously playground safety, swimming pool safety, kids in cars, and 10 or 12 other areas where we've enacted statutes in California and tried to use them as models in other areas, obviously. We did here's the kids' plates. Californians love their license plates. So we got the handprint, the heart, the plus sign as additional symbols, and the money for the customized plates goes to children. Millions of dollars are now flowing because Californians love these things. They have to have a special group now to review the new license plates because the Californians are very creative, and some guy said old F and then a heart, and they're doing a lot of things like that now. So we have to spend more money on that, but it's still worth it because millions of dollars are flowing in. Litigation, we've had some big wins. We had a big win in one case where we got the money increased to family foster care providers because they were not paying what the feds require, again, violating the floor. We went to court. We had Morrison and Forster with us, big, huge law firm representing corporations. They were doing a pro bono case with us. We won the case. We got the compensation for family foster care providers increased from $530 a month to $780 a month. By the way, the group homes charge $6,000 a month per kid. And we want them with families, not with group homes. We want them where they can get adopted, and that's where the adoptions come from. So we got it raised, and these families with all these foster kids and everything started sending us these pictures, these drawings of us in court and stuff, and pictures of them, 100 pages of these, like school kids will do when you visit the classroom or something, and the partner in MoFo called me and said, I just got this album of 100 messages from all of these kids and their parents, and it made me cry. And I said, Kim, your clients make me cry all the time. Morrison & Foerster represents every corporation in America. Anyhow, she did laugh, fortunately. In any event, we've had major cases. We've contributed to amicus cases in the Supreme Court, and we've won other cases. We have a case going on right now against Facebook, which I'm worried about. Facebook has settled a case with a private class action attorney who they agreed to pay him $10 million in attorney's fees after 1 year of litigation. He's ended up with $4.5 million in attorney's fees. It was reduced somewhat, but that's a lot of money. And Facebook has, as a part of the settlement, the right now to include in the terms and conditions to their teen subscribers that the teen has gotten permission from the parent to have Facebook remove and seize anything that's posted, picture or message, anything, rearrange and send it to whomever Facebook desires. At Facebook's total option, without any prior consent from parent or child, or even notice to the parent or child that it's going to happen. And that was stuck in a term and condition. We're challenging it now. We're petitioning for cert to the Ninth Circuit because we've lost in the Supreme Court because we've lost in the Ninth Circuit. So wish us luck, because we're right on that one. Absolutely right. So wish us luck. So those are some of the litigation highlights. There are other cases, of course, 10 or 12 cases, but I don't want to go into it. Regulatory advocacy. We do a lot of regulatory advocacy before various agencies. I won't bore you with that. You can get the PowerPoint and the details at our website, which is caichildlaw.org, if you want to see it. Here are special projects. We have a round table where you get all the child advocates in California together for meetings. We have the Homeless Youth Outreach Project. We have all these projects going on. And we have publications, regular publications. We get the legislative report card where we actually have the kids grade the legislators from A to F, which I think is appropriate. We have publications. Here are publications. I'll just let you see what they look like. Special reports. Here's a special report on home rates. Here's a secrecy and child deaths. Here we're releasing a report at the Capitol. Here's another special report. Another special report. I guess I'm making Ralph's words seem correct on the Fellmethian writing. Anyhow, special report, the financing of foster care in California and so forth, special report. And our reports, we don't just put out a report, we'll put out a subsequent edition every 3 or 4 years so they know we're not leaving. We're not leaving the subject, we're going to be back. Here's the last one here was Shame on US. That's the big one where we documented the failure of the Obama administration, actually and the previous administrations, to enforce the federal floors applicable to foster children. They're not enforcing them at all. And we documented this in several hundred pages here in this report, which if you want to really get discouraged, and if you're don't do it unless you're surely not contemplating suicide. But it's a very discouraging publication. We do leadership and collaboration with other groups, of course. And then we have our funding. Our funding is the university does pay for the academic program, but all of our advocacy, the Sacramento office, the DC office, all of that work is funded through soft money contributions. I'm proud to say that a majority of the faculty of USD Law School gives out of their own pockets to us. But we have trouble raising money. It's very difficult. The cost of those 2 offices plus 2 attorneys full-time is $500,000 a year, and that's our budget. They don't work it for high pay. They work because they love it, and they're top-notch, all of them. So that's it. Thank you very much.